All right, let's talk about a common question that I get from real estate agents, and that's whether or not they should be on cash or accrual accounting. For most real estate agents, I think it makes the most amount of sense to do cash accounting. And I'm going to kind of lay out the difference or a little bit of the difference so that you can kind of understand without going too deep into the difference and being kind of an accounting nerd. So let's get started with my little blackboard here, and I'm just going to kind of talk about the difference between cash accounting, and then we'll split this and we'll kind of show you with accrual accounting. Accrual accounting. And so what we want to talk about here is just basically how we see the difference in gross commission income or real estate agent income. So whatever it is that you're recording, let's say that your commission check is $9,000. So and it's going to be $9,000 on both sides. Now, the real major difference between cash accounting and accrual accounting is when revenue is recognized. Now, cash accounting is basically the definition. It's revenue is recognized when the cash is received. So obviously that would be you go to the closing. Let's say your closing is 625, and you go to the closing table on 625, and the title company obviously hands you $9,000 to give to your brokerage, or let's say a little bit above that because maybe you have a split, so they give you, let's say, $12,000. You take that check to your broker, and that broker then, let's say they are really fast at processing the transaction, so on the same day they give you $9,000. And that's when you would record your revenue. Now, accrual accounting is generally the reason people use accrual accounting is to try to match the revenue for when the work is done. So if you think about it as a real estate agent, most of your work is done. If you're showing a home or selling a home, you have to think about it that a lot of your work is done either once you have an accepted contract, like a purchase agreement, or maybe you consider it done after the appraisal. So essentially what you would do with accrual accounting is you would record the revenue earlier, because let's say you decide that you're going to record it on May 30th, because that's when the appraisal gets done and that's when you're going to record it. But in order to do this, you would have to create an invoice for it. An invoice is what we would see. And so the major difference is that during this time between the 30th and the 25th is your reports, like your profit and loss statement and your balance sheet, would show something different if based on which one you were doing. So if you pulled a profit and loss statement on 5/30, let's say, using a cash accounting method, your profit and loss would be, in this case, we're just accounting for revenue, would be 0. If you pulled your balance sheet, it would also be 0. Now, on the other hand, if you pulled the same reports for your using the accrual method, your profit and loss statement would say $9,000 because it's recording that income. Your balance sheet in this case would also say $9,000, with the majority of that going to your accounts receivable and most likely either net income or like retained earnings. Retained earnings. And so essentially the biggest issue with it is that as a real estate agent, if you're not really familiar with, fancy numbers, or you're not really familiar with reading profit and loss statements and balance sheet statements, it's not really totally great method to use. The other reason is that I don't really recommend accrual accounting method for real estate agents is because no transaction is really ever guaranteed, no matter how far you get down the line. Yeah, there's, few deals tend to close, like fall through after the appraisal is complete and inspections are complete, but you still have that possibility. So if you were doing that, you would have to, if a deal fell through, you would basically have to cancel this invoice or write it off to make sure that you're not showing this amount of revenue. And I think most real estate agents don't want to sit inside their, bookkeeping software or their accounting system and have to play around with the financial metrics. It makes more sense for real estate agents to be out showing homes, doing open houses, floor time, calling, following up on Zillow leads, whatever it might be. And so, the accrual method tends to be, great from an accounting perspective, but it's not generally user friendly that I would recommend for most real estate agents. And so for that reason, cash accounting is always, I shouldn't say always, but is generally going to be better, because the other reason that we run in with accrual accounting is it's going to take some special bookkeeping at year end to make sure your revenue is okay and accounted for so that you're paying the proper taxes. Because if you're, reporting $9,000 of income that you never actually end up getting, because let's say it's actually the end of the month and you're going to record this income on 12/30, but the deal doesn't actually close until, let's say, even January 3rd, you have a different fiscal year or a different year that this money would need to be accounted for in your revenue. Because let's say that, you do it in this year at 12/30, you're going to pay taxes assuming that you're going to make this $9,000. But then let's say the deal ends up falling through and you never actually earn that money. Well, now you've overpaid your taxes on it. So for that reason, I definitely generally recommend cash accounting in your QuickBooks. So if you're looking to set up your QuickBooks for cash, let's hop over into our QuickBooks here. You can do that by clicking the little gear icon in the upper right corner, going to your account and settings, and that'll pull up your account preferences and your account settings. And as soon as that loads, you can go ahead and go to the advanced section. It's going to require me to set up. I'm looking at a blank profile, but what you're going to do is you're going to set in your settings, and under your advanced settings, you can go ahead and change from accrual to cash accounting.